Welcome to our webinar for the month of September. I appreciate everybody who's here. Appreciate our speaker, Sean Reese from San Bernardino County Fire Marshal's Office, and our amazing interpreter, Liliana Alvarado, who's translating for us tonight. And thank you all for taking time away from your busy lives to pop onto this webinar. We will be recording it. We will also be sending out the PowerPoint presentation after the presentation, probably tomorrow or Thursday at the latest. But thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over. I'm so happy tonight that we have Sean Reese from the, as I said, the San Bernardino County Fire Marshal's Department. Sean has prepared a special presentation for us tonight on fire safety, and this is honor of the September 26th project. Many of you probably read in our newsletter that this is in honor of Feda and Mu Matidi, who passed away in a house fire. Mu had autism, and his mom went back into the house to save him, and unfortunately they both passed away. So every September 26th, our autism community honors them. And this month, I'm really happy with some of the things we have planned. So, Sean, I'm going to let you take it away, and I'll be advancing the slides. So if you need anything,
Cool.
Just say next slide.
All right, let's start it. I'm excited to be here. Thank you, guys.
Right.
Like I said, all right, we got the PowerPoint up.
We start it over.
Awesome.
There you go.
All right, we're going to dive into this. This is our welcome, everybody. Thank you for letting us come out and present this. This is our first webinar. We are with the, like I said, my name is Sean Reese. I'm with San Bernardino County Fire Department. I'm a fire investigator. I've been with the department for 8.5 years, and my primary job is to go out and look out fires, to figure out where they started and how they started. But also on the other side of that, I'm also, part of our job is to do public education. And then we came up with this PowerPoint to not only recognize Feda and Mu in the September 26th project. So this is going to tear off a little bit about this. This is going to be a PowerPoint presentation to just give you some guidelines on some stuff that, that we feel that's important. One of it is, looking at smoke detectors, fire extinguishers, evacuation, and some other stuff out there. But this is going to be a really good group effort. If you have questions, please ask the questions and we'll answer them. The common thing is too, I have a 5-year-old that's nonverbal. His name is Ryan. So some of those anxieties that we have and about fire safety, I can share with you. I can relate with you all as well. So participate. Let me know what your questions are, and we'll go through them. We'll, there's no such thing as a dumb question. So just let us know whatever we can do to help you to gain knowledge out of this, and we can go there. So we're going to just talk a little bit about the SPARKS program. It's a 6 little step process. One is we're going to be talking about teaching basic fire safety rules, home preparedness, being awareness about sensory experience of fire alarms and smoke alarms. We know that's a big, with our autism, with the fire smoke detectors, and that can put them in the fight and the flight and the freeze. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. Some of it is also dealing with the response, teaching clear and direct actions on emergency. We're actually detailing this to more of the caretakers at home, kind of give you some guidelines on to mitigate some of the issues if you do have a fire and how to get through it. The knowledge part of it is providing education. Education is basically, all the stuff that we're looking at tonight that we're going to go through is also been, it's basic, but we known that it's proven to reduce fires, smoke detectors, fire extinguishers, having a safety plan at home. Those are the most important things that we know, that when we teach, that we know it's going to work and it's going to save a life. And the last part of this is a support, collaborating with caregivers, educators, first responders to ensure a supportive fire response for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So that's the process of the SPARKS, and that's what we're going to kind of hone in on tonight. Next, Beth. So why is this important? Moo and Feta, like Beth started out, we're approaching the September 26th, and we really want to honor them. And I think, Feta was a really advocate for the autism. I've known a little bit about her. I've never met her, but I feel that her journey and stuff that she did for our community is she needs to be recognized. And I feel really honored about it. If we can do anything, if we can take 10 minutes and be able to, do the things that are in the September 26th project list that they got out to recognize her memory, that's what we're gonna do. And I think she did some really good things, and she was a real leader within our community. And I really wanted to give her the respect. And by doing this, I think she would be proud. And I hope she's looking down and she likes what we did for her. So thanks, Beth. All right, so what we'll cover tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about identifying fire hazards. Also, the sensory experience associated with fire and smoke alarms. How the smoke alarms affect our kids that are adults or anybody that's on this autism spectrum. Also, we're going to talk about learn how to call 911 and communicate the details. What the 911 is going to need when you call 911. What information you're going to tell them about the emergency situation. We're going to go into details. We're going to talk about practicing a evacuation plan. Come up with a plan. Have 2 exits at all times, a primary and a secondary, but also when you develop that program, be able to test it with your family at different times of the day, nighttime, morning time, and as often as you can, because the more you practice those evacuation plans, the better that everybody's going to come together and be able to unify and stay in one place. We're going to talk a little bit about fire safety rules, some stuff that's out there, the do's and don'ts when it comes to cooking, candles, all that type of stuff we're going to cover. And also we're going to talk a little bit about the roles of firefighters and how they assist during emergencies. I know sometimes when the fire truck rolls with the lights and sirens and the firefighters get off the rig, they come off and they're wearing their fire gear. We're going to talk a little bit about that, and some of stuff that if you have any concerns that we can answer those. And then the most important part of this thing is resources. We have to have the resources to be able to disseminate to our community. And we'll talk about that a little more detail. All right, Beth. So this is, we're going to watch a first video. I'm not going to say much. I'm just going to let you watch it. And if you have any questions, we're going to go ahead. I'll answer them after the video. This is a really good video. And this might be almost what we have in real life situations with as being a caretaker. We're caretaking for somebody that's elderly, that can't be mobilized or limited mobility. But watch the video and we'll talk about it. Okay. Go ahead, Beth. All right. So we're gonna play it back a little bit. I'm gonna have Beth go back and we're gonna
You're
go play
sleeping in
by
a position like this, you are wrecking your body and your breathing. Chronic neck.
That's not part of the video. So we're gonna go back to that video and we're gonna play play by play on it, and we'll talk about it. Beth, is there any questions? I can't see it, and just so I'm not ignoring it, but is there anything coming?
Right now.
Okay, cool. All right, so what we're gonna look at, we're gonna play the video. So we're playing it, and you notice that he's just having a normal day. It's his birthday. And this could be a real life situation for any of us, that caretakers, somebody that's their mobility is very limited. You obviously he has a walker. He's sitting there enjoying his day. But if you're looking over here, what are you starting to see is smoke. So what happens is the windows open and they're enjoying the breeze, but they have a candle that is sitting on top of this. What do you call it? On the blade. Little table. There it is. We'll just call it a little table. So the smoke is the curtain's blowing into it, starts getting smoke in there, and he doesn't realize what's going on. But the room is what we call a normal, typical room. We got couches. You can see all that. He's still enjoying his afternoon lunch, but now we're starting to see fire at the top of the ceiling. Basically what happens is obviously the fire started here and it went on the back side of that because that window's open right now and fire likes oxygen. So what it's doing right now, it's going across the ceiling. He still really didn't realize until his caretaker came in, and then doesn't have the full mobility to get up and start walking away. What's he want to do? He wants to go over and try and put the fire out. Well, at this ceiling level right now, it's starting to get warm. We're up in the 200 to 300 degrees along the ceiling just at this stage of the fire. And then this is what we call an incipient stage, which just means the beginning of a fire. And right now the smoke level's starting to drop. And what happens is the fire goes across, starts banking across the ceiling, smoke level starts to drop. It's the superheated gases that drop. And when people come into the room to put the fire out, they take a deep breath or trying to fight the fire and they breathe in that toxic smoke. And it's a superheated gas. And you got to remember, oxygen levels 21%, but in this environment with the fire burning, we're probably looking at the 18, maybe 16% oxygen level. And at that point, when they're trying to put the fire out, this is where we see people start to get disoriented, meaning that they know their house, but since their oxygen level in their brain is not getting enough and it's depleted, they start wanting to go out this way. And sometimes they know that they could see the window and they try and go by the window because they know that's an exit route. And what happens is the fire gets going and they don't make it out. But you can also tell the drapes and stuff are starting to start it's called fall down, and the fire start burning other parts of the area. And within this matter of minutes, in 2 to 3 minutes, this room is what we call a pre-flashover or flashover conditions, where everything in the room starts to get going, and nobody really survives that. The best thing that I can take from this video is that his caretaker came and got him out. You really don't have time to go and be able to fight fire. Not at this level. They don't have the big water. A bucket of water is not going to put that out. The best thing that they could have done is get their loved one out and stay out and call the fire department. Let the guys handle that. This is too big of a fire to put out with a bucket. It's already gone into the free burning stages, and it takes a little bit more of a fire truck, a hose to put that type of fire out. And it's not really worth going in and trying to put the fire out. Get your loved one out, stay out. Any questions on that one? It's a pretty good video. It's like I said, that's one of our ones that we would see. Those are the primary things that we'll see everyday life. You're just having a day, the wind feels good, you got a candle going because it's the aroma, and then the curtain blows into the candle, and we have a fire in the living room. So that was a good video. I want to at least share that one. That's kind of, it's more typical that we see that type of stuff.
No
Are we still doing questions?
Yeah, no questions so far.
Okay, awesome. If they come, that's fine. Let's move on to the next slide. So we want to just give you a little bit of how fire works. And we're not trying to make you firefighters, but at least have an idea of how the fire works. So what we call this is a fire triangle. and there's three elements. We got oxygen, heat, and for oxygen, heat, and fuel. So what happens is when firefighters come and we put out a fire, we're eliminating one of these elements out of the triangle. So if we're cooling the fire off, we're removing the heat source. If the fire burns all the fuel up and there's nothing to burn, we're removing the fuel. And also, if we're we're suppressing the oxygen, taking the oxygen out because fire likes oxygen, we're taking that element. These are the three things that will take a fire out. Basically, if you had a fire extinguisher, by using a fire extinguisher, if it's small enough, one of these elements would be taken out. And we just want to show you that with these three things of what that you would have to have a fire. So causes of house fire. So these are some of the things that we see when we're out there looking at house fires. When I do investigations, is it cooking related incident? Is it heating equipment? Is electrical and light issues? Smoking materials, candles. We just saw a candle right now start a fire. And then lastly, intentional fires. And these intentional fires are what are people that go actually set fires, like arson cases, or they go out and set fires, and essentially. So what do you guys think is the number one cause of a house fire? Anybody want to take a guess?
And throw it in the chat.
Throw it in the chat. See, chat.
Looks like people are raising their hands. I'm wondering if the chat's not working.
I'm not seeing anything on the webinar chat either, Beth.
Yeah.
We can.
Okay, we will try to get in there. Let's see if.
There's a Q&A. Let me see what that is.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got some questions here. There's a let's see. I hope I don't mess her. Marcia, she says cat disabled. Is it cats disabled?
Yeah, CJ said the chat's disabled.
Okay.
Are there any answers? Let's
Yeah,
just
we have.
guess. The Q&A works. So put it in the Q&A and if you can see the Q&A on your side.
I can. So Rebecca said, Rebecca Nevis said candles. It
Okay.
shows that the chat is disabled. Okay, so that's an electrical fires. And then I can't spell. That's all right, Marcia. Don't worry about it. Chat's not working. Chat's disabled. We're working on that. If there's a home fire extinguisher, if so, is there any programs that provide free extinguishers for kiddos on the spectrum? Also, chat is disabled. We're working on that. I know it's cooking fire. Cool. Terrence, is it Terrence Tinsley? Right on. Beth, you go ahead and give us the answer.
Answer is
Cooking. Terrence is right. Terrence Tinsley. So cooking is our number one cause of fires in houses. That's because we'll get more depth into that when we come to that area. We have a good PowerPoint on cooking fires and some safety, but Terrence got it. Electrical. These are all good answers. These are all not wrong answers, guys. You guys hit it on the head. So give yourself an applause for that one. You guys got it all right. These are all major contributing factors of fires. So give yourself a thumbs up, and you guys did well. Next one, Beth. There it is. So we're going to play another little video. So watch the video and we can answer some questions. And I know there's a question.
Family and friends together provides an outlet for creativity and can even be relaxing. But did you know that cooking fires are the #1 cause of home fires and home injuries? By following a few simple safety tips, you can prevent these fires. Never leave the kitchen when you are frying, grilling, or broiling food. If you do have to leave, even for a short time, turn off the stove. Keep anything that can catch fire, oven mitts, wooden utensils, food packaging, towels, or curtains away from your stovetop. And if you do have a cooking fire, just get out. You can call 911 after you leave the house. You can find out more about cooking safety and other safety tip sheets on the NFPA website. Just go to nfpa.org/safety tips.
So cooking. So, when we're looking at cooking, we don't want to be, if you're going to start cooking, we want to pay attention and we don't want to leave the room. We don't want to leave something frying like in the frying pan going at all times. Sometimes we get distracted with our phones and we're going to take a call because we're in the middle of, we're going to cook our family dinner, but somebody called, we want to get caught up. We want to stay in contact. We want to make sure that if you're cooking or frying something, you want to make sure, it's at the heat is at the, not overheating the pan, and making sure that, what's on there, you're watching it and don't walk away from it. Another part of this is kids, our little ones. If the handles are outward, that's the first thing that our toddlers are going to reach up and grab. And what happens is they're either going to get burned by their hands, or that content of boiling water is going to fall on top of them. And once they go to second and third degree burns, that's a painful burn to a child. Let's see what else. Looking at some of those other things, is we get the question too, what kind of extinguishers do we need in our kitchens? So some of the ones that you can buy from Home Depot, as long as they're if you go to Home Depot, they're what we call a 2A10BC extinguisher. It's an ABC extinguisher that covers we'll go into more depth on what they cover, but that's the most common. Or a BC, little small 10 BC extinguisher, which is good enough to put out the grease fires and other fires. And we'll get a little more in detail that. I don't want to jump ahead on it, but somebody in the chat asked us what was the best extinguisher to have in the kitchen. Those are some alternatives. We'll get more in depth than that. Okay. Beth, good. So electrical fires and safety. So our everybody's kind of, right now we're living in some times where we're having a lot more people live with us. Our kids are living with us, our parents are living with us. Sometimes we don't have enough outlets, especially in a home that's built in the 50s and 60s. Sometimes we don't have enough outlets, and what we're doing is we're taking extension cord and what we call piggybacking it just to get some more outlets in the house. And what we're doing is to overcurrent the outlets. We're causing that to fail when we do that. Plug one heating producing appliance like your coffee, your toaster, plug it into the outlet. If you have to use an extend or a multi-plug adapter, use something that's what we call a surge protected. Surge protected is the best way to do it, because if something fails, it's going to stop right there. It's not going to allow it to continue on with the power. Some of the old ones back in the day, if you guys remember, if you're around back in the day like us, we had those old brown cords that were really good at Kmart. Kmart used to sell them. They were like $4 or $5. They were really cheap, but there was no protection, which means they would go from an outlet, and then on the plug, had a multi-plug adapter at the end, and then we plugged in the heater, we plugged in the fan, and we did all this stuff. We're still seeing those out to these days. We go to house fires, and those are still, people are using them because they don't throw them away. But those are the ones that are the bad ones, the brown ones, that there's no surge protection. It's got current power going to it all the time, that type of stuff. Extension cords. Extension cords are only good for temporary use. Sometimes we'll see them, they're running around the house because they're trying to supply power to other parts of the house. Or if there's the electrical panel, if it's bad, they only got half the power working on one side of the house and they need to get it to the other house, they're running multiple extension cords. Well, that's only meant for a temporary means, not for a full time. Sometimes, let's talk a little bit about if we do run an extension cord as a temporary base. We have it going through the living room. We have to watch out what we call pinch points and running underneath the rugs. Pinch points are like if they go around the furniture and it causes that pinch point. Sometimes that's where, because there's power obviously going to that extension cord, that part was going to fail, and that's what would cause a fire, because of the pinch point. It's pinched around an object, or an object is sitting on top of the extension cord, or it's running underneath a rug, and all day long we walk on it and it's causing fatigue within the electrical system. And then we ultimately at some point where it gets worn down to a point, it's going to cause a fire. So that's one thing too. If you're going to do any electrical panel work, I know sometimes it's a lot of money. If you're going to upgrade the panel, you have to pull permits, but make sure the person that's doing that is qualified. That's an electrical contractor, somebody that's going to going to put that into service and it's going to work right, because you know sometimes somebody that's a handyman or somebody that we know that's going to, hey, I can do that for cheaper. Sometimes the cheaper route is not always the best route, because that's where the fires would happen. We don't want that to happen, or they don't do it right, or they leave something they leave the shroud undone, and our kids go in there and they're all, hey, what are all these wires? And they stick their hands in, and they wind up getting electrocuted. So those are one of the things that we don't want to see happen as well. All right, Beth, next one. So we're getting into our fall and winter coming up, and heating is one of our things that we're starting to see in the mountain community. Even though we're 90 degrees here in the valley, sometimes the mountains, it gets a little bit colder, you know, the 60s, and, you know, we're starting to see heaters turn on, and fireplaces will be coming on soon. So we want to talk a little bit about the heating equipment. You know, when you're using a heater, it's okay, as long as you're keeping 3 feet away from your bed or away from other combustible objects, you'll be fine. Once again, you want to plug that heater in directly into an outlet. You don't want to run the extension cord, because that, you got to remember, those heaters do pull a lot of volts and stuff. You don't want to run it all day long, turn it off when you don't need it. Don't leave it unattended when you go to the store. Those are some of the key factors with that. Also, your heating, your chimney. So if you have a chimney that's made out of the brick, you know, the common chimney, you want to be able to get that cleaned by a professional. You know, all that creosote that's in it, the first time we put the log in there and we start a fire, and then all that creosote that's in the chimney, it causes a fire. Another factor that we didn't talk about is sometimes you guys heard of a zero clearance fireplace, and what that is, only for gas appliances. Basically, it's a metal box inside of a wood frame, and sometimes we have people putting the wood inside there and starting a fire. So after a period of time, we'll see what we call, it's a big technical name called pyrolysis. Basically, it gets heated up so much that the wood around the burn box starts charring, starting to smolder, and then we have a fire in a zero clearance fireplace. That's not made for that. That's only made for the gas appliances, like a gas chimney, instead of putting a firewood in there. So remember, when you see that, don't put the wood in there if you have one of those at home. Another good part of this is never use your stove or your heater. One, because you've got carbon monoxide. Sometimes if there's incomplete combustion, what I'm meaning is, if you look at the stove and it's not blue and it's got some orange in it, or it's completely orange, there's what we can have carbon monoxide poisoning within the house. So you don't want any of that as well. Like I said, we already talked about, plug the space heater directly into a wall outlet, and never into extension cord or power strip. It's the safest way. If it's even got this GFI, which is a surge protector on the actual outlet, that's awesome, because if something fails, it's going to stay out the outlet. It's not going to keep burning. Next, Beth. Smoky materials. So if you choose to smoke, you know, these are some of the things that we see out there as well. So if you're going to smoke outside. A lot of our fires, you know, people fall asleep with a cigarette inside the house, or they discard their ashtray on the table, and a pet knocks it off and then lands on the floor. Now they got a fire going. The best thing to do is douse the cigarette butts with the water, throw them away. Don't throw them in the trash when they're lit. Never toss them into the vegetation, because those are the type of things that will start fires. Another thing that we didn't talk about too is we have people that are on oxygen that will have to have a cigarette. And what's the problem is, that's a flammable gas, and as soon as they take a hit, it has a fire, and they wind up dying from the inhalation injuries and burns secondary. So those are some of the things that I would recommend if you're choosing to smoke. You know, safely do it outside. Make sure you're responsible. Put it in water, and never throw them in the trash, because sometimes they empty the ashtray into the trash, and there's still hot embers still going to get in the trash and cause it to burn. So make sure we do that. Next, Beth. Candle safety, we saw that video. Candles are really good. Everybody likes candles because of the aroma, but we just got to make sure that we never leave them unattended. Make sure that they're 12 inches away from anything that could burn. Obviously, we saw in that video, they were right there in the curtains, and the curtain was blown back, and it got caught on, started catching on fire. Also, keep them on a stable resistance surface, on something hard, not they're going to tip over, or an animal, your dog, cat, whatever, can also knock those over as they're walking by and knock it off of the table onto the ground. And also, You know, if you choose to, if you like candles, they have the flameless ones too. They're not as aroma, but if you choose like to have the candles, and for the safety factor, especially if we have children that are directed to fire, that like fire, those are recommendations, you know, the not have candles in the house. And we'll get into a story about that too here in a little bit, about one of the experiences I had recently with a nonverbal child, and it's pretty it was pretty, it took me back, but we'll get more into that. So um battery operated lights, well, I use them at home. I use the flameless ones for my house. I want to make sure that my child doesn't grab me because he's curious about stuff like that. So next, Beth. So we incendiary fires, these are most of our arson fires, these are the leading cause of fire loss. Arson, it's a problem within every jurisdiction. Our homeless get into, I won't say our homeless, but our unhoused people will get into certain areas, and sometimes they'll light fires to do it maliciously, or they'll do it because they're cold and they need to keep warm, but they'll go out and leave the fire unattended, and it extends into other parts of, like, if they have a lot of stuff around, like their bags, sleeping stuff like that, it causes other fires. Our youth and our youth involvement. I just had a call of probably about 2 months ago in our high desert community. I got to the house, and we had a nonverbal 10-year-old, and his name was Gio. He loped out the back window, or back sliding glass, went into the family shed. He was playing with a lighter, and I wouldn't have believed it either until I got the video, and it shows him coming out. He was doing some stemming, looking at the fire because he was curious with it, and within seconds it started going inside the shed, and he was probably about 3 to 5 feet, and it almost burned him. And the fireball that came out, and for whatever reason, he took off and did not get burned. So if we're having those issues, you know, with kids playing with fire and they're drawn to it, you know, those are things that I haven't seen a lot of them, thank God. But those are some of the things that was the first time I saw it, and I was taken back. And so if you do have issues with that, you know, unfortunately, you know, with what I do as a youth fire setter, I would go out and interview and do an intervention and try and get him some help, but he was nonverbal. So at that time, what I did is I sat with the parents and became more of an educator. What can we do to help you guys out? Is there a program? What is he like? And, you know, what does he do? She goes, this is the second time that he's done it, but not to this degree. So I took my investigator hat off. I figured out, you know, what can I do? She goes, you know, she explained that he elopes a lot. He jumps over fence. And I explained that I became more of a resource. I sat down with mom for about an hour explaining what can we do to help her out, you know. And I needed to get educated, to be honest with you, you know, and I learned some things from Beth and your guys' group on next time when I go out, and if I do have that, what tools are in my box to help that family. You know, mom was like devastated. She goes, you know, I'm just so tired because, you know, it's constantly, you know, we got to lock the house down. And I felt for her, you know, so I wanted to be a good advocate. I gave her my number and said, you know, if there's anything what we can do, you know, let us know and we'll help you. And she appreciated it. And she didn't realize there was a lot of resources. So, you know, now I'm more getting out there and being more of a public person and trying to get those resources out and do the best we can for our community. All right. And then community risk reduction, you know, that's one of those things too, you know, the community risk reduction. That's why I did what I did. You know, I wanted to help her out. Lithium ions. So we all have lithium ions on majority of our products, cell phones, computers, our kids' toys are coming with it, e-bikes, electrical vehicles obviously have them. The big thing with lithium ion, they do cause a lot of fires when they're, you know, discarded, if the battery cells get punctured or they get overcharged. Some of the products that we're seeing that are coming from like Amazon, not to knock Amazon or anything like that, sometimes those products are coming over and they're not ASTM certified or fire marshal approved. They are a good deal, but sometimes they're causing issues at home. You know, you get a battery for your computer and it's like, you know, half the price of what Dell would charge us, right? So we charge it up and all of a sudden the battery becomes hot and all of a sudden we have a fire because that lithium ion that's in there, you know, escapes and causes fire. The best thing I would do is just cautiously, you know, do your homework on that. As you know, when I say that, just make sure that they all meet the, like I said, ASTM, fire marshal, they've been tested. Some of the stuff that are coming over, you know, it's causing a lot of fires. Our kids' scooters, you know, the hoverboard, remember when the hoverboards were coming out and hoverboards were a big thing, but they would plug them in, and the lithium ion batteries, parents would go to work, come home, and their house would burn down because the hoverboard was being overcharged, and all of a sudden, the kid's hoverboard would cause a fire. So just cautiously with the lithium ions, don't throw them away. There's recycling places that would take them, because you throw them in. You notice in most of our trash trucks are catching fire right now because people throw those lithium ion batteries because they're like, no big deal, we'll throw them in the trash. As they're scooping that up and move, as that blade comes down to make more room, it's causing, breaking the lithium ion, it's causing fires. It's causing fires in the trash trucks. That's why you see a lot of trash trucks, they'll dump their load because that's probably one of the things that are going on. So don't throw them away. There's recycling places that will be able to take those and safely render those and reduce some of the fires. Okay. All right, Beth. So we're going to watch another video on lithium ion batteries. This is a pretty good one as well. So I hope you guys see what we can do.
Join NFPA and fire departments across North America for Fire Prevention Week 2025. Charge into fire safety, lithium-ion batteries in your home. Most of the electronics we use every day, like phones, tablets, cordless vacuums, and power tools, are powered by lithium-ion batteries. In fact, almost everything that's rechargeable uses them. The problem is, if these batteries are overcharged or damaged, they can overheat, catch fire, or even explode. Here's how you can stay safe. Buy only listed products. Look for a safety certification mark from a nationally recognized testing lab on the packaging or the product. Only use the charger that came with your device or a charger approved by the manufacturer. Charge on a hard surface, never on your bed, couch, or under a pillow. And don't overcharge. Once it's at 100%, unplug it. When it's time to get rid of used batteries, don't throw them in the trash or regular recycling bins. They could start a fire. Instead, recycle them responsibly. Visit call2recycle.org to find a battery drop-off location near you. You can help make your home, your community, and the planet safer by recycling batteries the right way. Let's charge into fire safety together. For more fire safety tips, visit fpw.org.
Awesome. So those are okay. So what is one thing that you could do that you cut your risk of dying in a house fire? What do you guys think? What is that one little thing that saves lives that we hear all the time in our fire prevention message that we always try and say, this one little device will save your life in a fire? Anybody want to take a stab at that one? Yep, everybody got one. You got it. Smoke detectors. Believe it or not, smoke detectors are proven to, early detection to get them out. And I know sometimes we'll get a little bit more deep into the smoke detectors, but those are a cheap device. I wouldn't say cheap, but a cheaper device to be able to put in your house. If something happens, it alerts everybody to get up. I think, for if it saves one life, it does its job. The smoke detectors that we talk about a little bit these are the different ones that you're going to see. The ionization smoke alarm, it detects fast flames, fire like kitchen fires, grease fires, paper fires. The photoelectric smoke alarm is a detector that detects smoldering, smoky fires like upholstery and electrical fires. And then they have the dual sensor, which is both ionization and the photoelectric sensors. Some of the those are three different type of smoke detectors that you're going to see when you go to pick one out at Home Depot or one of your local places, or even Amazon. You can get them off there. These are the ones that you're going to see out there. You're going to see also the combination and smoke alarm. So that means it's a smoke alarm with a carbon monoxide detector built into it. So it's listening. It's going to detect the smoke and obviously carbon monoxide. The new ones that we're seeing out there right now is the 10-year smoke alarm batteries. Those are the most common ones. Those are the ones they're going to be the 10-year smoke alarms. You're going to put them up at your residence. You're going to put them on each level of the floor. wherever somebody sleeps, in bedrooms, common areas. And when they're installed, you put the date that you install them so you can recognize, okay, about 10 years, I'm going to replace these. The ones that are in people's houses are the interconnected smoke alarms. So what those interconnected smoke alarms do, they're the ones that are hardwired into the infrastructure of the house. And they're constantly going, but they have a 9-volt battery that's a backup battery. So in case of something happens, if the electric goes out, the 9-volt battery will still keep they'll keep the smoke alarm going. Sometimes with the newer houses, they're putting them up in there. Just remember, when you hear the beep, it's time to go and take them down and put the 9-volt back in, but put them back up. I know they're annoying when they do that beep. You're like, oh, I just want to take this thing down. Don't take them down. They're going to save a life. And it's been proven. That's why we harp on it. And we try and get that out to our public. We really want to, smoke detectors really save lives, guys. But yeah, so test them every couple of months. There's a test button on them. Make sure when they go off, they all go off. If there's something wrong with them, replace it. Replace the batteries on those ones. As we're coming into the fall, the time change, good time to get in there and change those batteries, change them, make sure we have them, make sure that they're operation at all time. They will definitely save a life. Okay. Next, Beth. We'll watch a video on one, and it shows you how to do your smoke detectors.
Did you know that 65% of all home fire deaths happen in homes that either have no smoke alarms or the smoke alarms that are present are not working? You need working smoke alarms in your home to give you an early warning to get out in a fire. Here is some important information for you on smoke alarms from the National Fire Protection Association. When buying a smoke alarm, make sure it has the label of an independent testing laboratory. For the best protection, you should have both photoelectric and ionization type smoke alarms. A photoelectric alarm is more responsive to smoldering fires, like a fire started by a discarded cigarette. An ionization alarm is more responsive to flaming fires, such as a grease fire on the stove. There are smoke alarms available that are both photoelectric and ionization. Look for features that are important to you, such as a hush button to temporarily silence a nuisance alarm, or an alarm that can be tested using the television remote control. You need a smoke alarm in every bedroom, outside each sleeping area, and on every level of your home, including the basement. Interconnect the smoke alarms so that when one sounds, they all sound. Smoke alarms can be interconnected through your electrical system by a qualified electrician, or wireless interconnected smoke alarms are now available that you can install yourself. Test all your smoke alarms at least once a month by pushing the test button like this. Replace batteries in all your smoke alarms, both hardwired and battery operated, once a year or when the alarm chirps indicating a low battery. If your smoke alarm is more than 10 years old, it's time to replace it. Working smoke alarms in the home will give you the early warning you need to get out in a fire. Test your smoke alarms today to make sure they are working.
So it gives you a little bit about the safety and how to check them and all this stuff. If you guys, after, it'll be available on the PowerPoint for review at a later time, if you guys want to look at it as well. We're going to give this to you guys to be able to have for your reference for later as well. And also we'll have some links with that you can be able to reference off of our sbcfire.org. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit the different type of smoke detector, and the big thing that we come across that we have a lot of questions are deaf and hard of hearing clients. I did some research, and trying to find the best way, because there's one of our clients that live by themselves, and their question was, I can't hear the fire smoke detector if it goes off. What can I do? So I started looking around. These are some of the stuff that are out right now. The Lifetone technology, Safe Awake, and Silent Call. They're a little expensive. That's the kicker on them. But what they are is a bed shaker, and what it does, it goes in between the bed mattress. Maybe some of you have them, some of you don't. I'd love to hear your feedback on them. if you do have them, just so I know. But I think this was it listens for the smoke detector in the house and it starts shaking the bed to get them up. We're going to watch another video on how that works out. Okay, Beth.
If you go to your local hardware store and start shopping around for smoke alarms, you'll find something that looks like this. In the event of a fire, the alarm will beep. But what if you're somebody who can't hear that beep? What sort of smoke alarm technologies exist for people who are deaf or hard of hearing? Welcome to Learn Something New by NFPA Journal. As far back as the late 1800s, people have been experimenting with heat and smoke detection devices meant to save people from dying in fires. One such development came in the late 1930s when a Swiss physicist tried but failed to invent a poison gas detector. Frustrated, the scientist lit a cigarette and, to his surprise, his device was triggered. It could detect smoke in the air. Over the decades, new smoke alarm technologies emerged, and today, codes require smoke alarms in most homes in the US and many other countries. The vast majority of them use an audible signal to let folks know it's time to evacuate. But what if you can't hear that audible signal? According to the World Health Organization, over 360 million people, that's more than the entire US population, suffer from disabling hearing loss. For these individuals, you might be surprised to learn about some of the technologies currently out there and some that have been theorized to help solve this problem. In August, the Fire Protection Research Foundation released a report reviewing both real-world and theoretical alarm technologies for people who are deaf or hard of hearing. And in today's episode, we'll be taking a look at 3 of them, which research has shown have varying levels of success in terms of being able to wake up sleeping individuals in the event of a fire. Be sure to click the link to the full Foundation report, which can be found in the description of this video, to learn more about these 3 technologies and several others. 1. Olfactory alarms. Can smells wake you up? It's a question that's actually been at the heart of debate for many years, in research studies, newspaper articles, and even just online forums. There's no shortage of people out there claiming to have been woken up by the smell of bacon on more than one occasion. But were they really, or did they just happen to wake up and smell bacon? Well, there's at least enough credence in nasal wake-up calls to warrant alarm technologies that spray fragrant mist into the air. Studies, however, have shown that while smells can wake you up in lighter stages of sleep, they're not that reliable in deeper stages. In the Foundation report, authors Eric Smedberg and Enrico Ronchi of Lund University in Sweden also note that people who suffer from seasonal allergies or regular nasal congestion might not wake up from smells. Currently, olfactory alarms seem to only be commercially available for non-emergency uses, and based on the science out there, it's probably best that it stays that way. 2. Bed shakers. Perhaps the most common alarm technology for deaf people are devices that shake their bed or pillow. Over the years, various studies have shown these devices are anywhere from 70 to 100% effective at waking people up, although older people do tend to respond less favorably. Right now, a number of commercially available options exist for people who are deaf to use a bed shaker not only to alert them of fires, but also simply to wake up in the morning. Typically, the devices plug into the wall and actually connect to another device that is triggered by the sound of a traditional alarm. The authors of the recent Foundation report conclude that bed shakers do seem to be a reliable way to wake deaf and hard of hearing individuals up. 3. Robot dogs. Here's where things get interesting. Let me say that again. Robot dogs. In 2017, a study by Japanese researchers examined whether a robot dog could mimic the actions of a real dog, which deaf people sometimes use to alert them of emergencies. The researchers even built a prototype that would bump into a person's bed to wake them up. A small trial they conducted showed all 10 participants, whose hearing loss was simulated with earplugs, woke up within 20 seconds of the robo-dog intervening. While nothing's commercially available yet, in a similar development, major automaker Hyundai announced last month that it would be employing a robot dog, courtesy of Boston Dynamics, to monitor working conditions at one of its factories in South Korea. Spotting potential fire hazards and detecting temperature spikes are 2 of many jobs the robot will be reportedly taking on. If you want more info about these 3 technologies and others, remember to check out the link to the full foundation report. Also, if you didn't already know, October 3rd through October 9th is Fire Prevention Week, and this year's theme is all about smoke alarms. That also includes the kinds of technologies we discussed in this video. For more information and to download resources like fact sheets, head over to fpw.org. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please let us know by liking it or leaving us a comment.
Awesome. I'm answering the, I saw the Q&A open and I'm answering questions as fast and as I can. So I will get to everybody and we'll answer your question. I'm not ignoring you. I'm just going through them and answering as I see, and we'll get more in depth with it. There's some really good questions on here. We'll address those before we leave this. All right, guys, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just trying to, there's quite a bit of answers or questions and a lot of good ones. So give me an opportunity. I'll give you an opportunity. We'll look into that and we'll talk a little bit more about that after the program, if that's all right. All right. So a fire escape plan. This is a really big one. So everybody's house, even our home, we practice and we want to be able to make sure we have escape routes. And if you look at the map, it has primary escape routes leading out through a doorway and a secondary throughout windows. So the thing is we want to make sure there's access to those points. There's not a lot of clutter. You want to make sure that if somebody is in a wheelchair or somebody that's in a walker or something like that, develop the plan and execute the plan, meaning that if you drop your plan and say, hey, we're going to meet here and then we're going to go out through, if this is blocked, we're going to go out through the doorway, or if they can't get through the doorway because of fire, we're going to go out the window because that's an escape route. Let's make sure that, when you guys develop the plan, that you execute it and do it at different times of the day. Do it in the morning time, do it at nighttime, because sometimes at nighttime it's a lot different what it looks like than it does during the daytime, obviously. But once you're out, stay out. Don't go back inside and try and fight that fire. If it's a big fire, and the reason why we're explaining that is because a lot of our consumer products now they're burning a lot faster. They're burning off a lot more. They're giving off a lot more toxic smoke. And once you're out, stay out. I understand, long as we get everybody out of the house, our loved ones, all this other stuff can be replaced. I know there's some sentimental value stuff that cannot be replaced, but we don't want to go back inside and it's just the consumer products are way too, they're cheaper made than they did in the 60s and 70s, and a lot of stuff we're seeing flash points and ignition points a lot faster than we did in the 50s and 60s. That flash point or the ignition point is that it's a temperature where something will ignite, right? Flash over in a room is happening 2 to 3 minutes when the fire starts. So that means the whole room over here is involved with fire. So you really have no really time to mess around. And the real hard conversation that we all had was, do we fight the fire or do we get our loved one out? So you got 2 to 3 minutes to get out of the house. It's going to probably take you that long to get your loved one out, especially if they're on the spectrum. And if it's a 200-pound, your son's 200 pounds and he's over sensory, you're going to have a challenge to get him out. I wouldn't want to fight the fire. I would worry about getting them out and stay out. Let us get in there. We'll put the fire out. As long as your loved one's safe, that's the whole name of the game. We want to make sure you stay out. Don't let anybody go back inside, and stay out. Okay. Make sure that you got your meeting place, designate the meeting spot, test the door windows. Make sure that if you're living, you have your windows, make sure they work. Or if you have the burglar bars on there, or the metal frames on the windows with the burglar bars, make sure that the quick access release works. Test those things, make sure, because if that's the access, if you're in this bedroom right here and you have the bars and we haven't tested them in 5 years and they're corroded and you try to get out that room, you're not going to get out. The only way we get those out is if our firefighters use a special saw to cut those out, and that's time that we don't have. So we want you to get out, okay? And just practice a plan. When we're looking at NFPA, when we talk about half the families do not practice the plan. When you put that plan in order, practice it and execute it, and it will save lives. All right, Beth. So we're going to watch another video from NFPA that explains escape routes and a little bit more death.
Most people are surprised to learn that when there's a fire in your home, you may have as little as 2 minutes to get out safely from the time the smoke alarm sounds. 2 minutes is not a lot of time, especially when it's the middle of the night and everyone is asleep. And when you add in smoke and heat, confusion and fear, multiple floors, and several people, every second counts. You need to have a plan to get everyone out safely, starting with working alarms, ideally interconnected ones, so that when one alarm in your home sounds, they all do, no matter where the fire starts. Remember to check doors for heat before opening them so you know if it's safe to go that way. During a fire, there's no time to decide who should be doing what. Look at all that time zipping by. Your fire safety plan should include assigned roles so everyone knows what to do and there's no confusion. Children can sleep through a smoke alarm even if it's right next to them, so always check their room and stay with them as you exit the house. In your safety plan, make sure there are 2 marked exits from every room and everyone in the family knows where they are. If the main exit is blocked by smoke or fire, you won't waste time figuring out where to go next. Crouching low and going under the smoke is the safest way to exit. Once you are safely outside, call the fire department right away. Never go back inside a burning building. Firefighters are trained and prepared to enter one. You're not. Picking an outside designated meeting place a safe distance from your home is critical for knowing that everyone has escaped safely. It also helps firefighters know who is safe and who is still inside and needs to be rescued. No one wants to think about their house catching fire. It's scary. But while home escape planning and practice may seem unnecessary, these actions can have heroic impact. Be a hero in your own home. Make a home escape plan with everyone in your family and practice it today.
So we looked at that safety plan. Also, too, with the doors being shut in the bedrooms, will also reduce the fire flow, which is a fire flow path that allow the fire to stay outside that door because there's a certain amount of ratings on that door. So if it's in a bedroom and you're only way out, if you're checking the door and there's heat on that other door and you're like, I'm not going out that way, I'm going to go out my window, at least you know that door, you got a little bit of time to get out that window. But if that door is open at nighttime, that fire is going to come right through that room. So sleeping with the doors are recommended, with the doors shut. I know sometimes with our kids on the spectrum or whoever, it might be a challenge. We want to make sure our loved ones, are there and they're, not trying to elope and go out the window and stuff like that. I understand that as well, but those are just the common things that, that's going to reduce some of the fire flow. Next is we'll talk about 911 a little bit. So when to call 911 and what to say. With San Bernardino County Fire Department, we're part of what we call ConFire, and it's a communication center, and it handles all of the majority of the fire departments, such as like Rialto, Colton Fire, Loma Linda. They're all part of the ConFire, including San Bernardino County Fire. It's a big dispatch center. So when you call 911, you're going to give them your location. You're going to, just try and remain calm, no matter what the situation is. I know it's better, easier said than done, but trying to remain calm and listen to what the dispatcher. Most of our dispatchers are what we call EMD, emergency medical dispatch qualified. And if it's a serious emergency, like if somebody's not breathing, our dispatchers will walk you through, no matter if you had CPR or not, they're going to walk you through to help you get through it. Also, they're going to stay online until we get there. Another piece of information that we have is what we have tablet commands on majority of the rigs. Majority in San Bernardino County have what we have tablet commands, and it's a live tablet. It kind of gives us all of the call information, what's going on about the loved one. If they have special needs, if they're if they're breathing, non-breathing, how many times we've been out there. We have a call history where it can look up. But as you're giving more information to that dispatcher, that is actually being inputted into what we call our CAD system and given live updates. The fire captain is constantly looking at that on the situational awareness, even in the event of a fire. So if we get a fire and you're saying my loved one's trapped up on the second floor, give them that information. My loved one's on the second floor, it's on the backside of the house. They're going to update that, and the first priority is going to be rescue operation, not putting the fire out. They're going to go in and start searching for your loved one, and hopefully, you know, obviously they're going to work on getting them out. But the main thing is to remain calm as much as you can. Give them all the information. If they're on the spectrum, let them know, hey, my son is on the spectrum. He's, you know, he's having a bad day. You know, he's, you know, or whatever. He hurt himself. The more information that we get, the better we can serve it. Sometimes we get the calls of my son's injured, and all of a sudden you get a click and they hang up. Well, you don't have a lot of information to go on. All you're getting is RP called, hung up, unknown medical aid. So we don't have all the information. We're trying to get more information as we're rolling to that call. We're trying to asking our dispatcher, can you call back the RP and give us more information on what's going on? Especially if you're upset, we get it, but as you're painting a picture for us to get there, because the captain's obviously getting his crew ready and say, hey, look, you know, we got a medical aid, you know, it's a 16-year-old male that fell down. He's on the spectrum. These are his conditions, and the more stuff they're going to work with us. And there's some other stuff that we're working on, at least in the San Bernardino County area, that we're trying to meet those needs on the 911 stuff. And there's some things that we're working with our community on, you know, trying to build that relationship. When we'll get to it, there's a little bit at the end that we'll talk about my healthcare passport that may work in that situation, and we'll go into further details. But the thing is that when you call 911, just give them the information, the emergency, what's going on, you know, when to call 911, if there's a fire, if there's somebody's not breathing, there's a car accident, there's electrical lines down. Those are type of things, you know, that the fire department and emergency medical response. And then typically you're going to get a fire truck majority, or a smaller, what we call a squad. You're going to get an ambulance, which is majority of AMR. Depending on what the call is, if you hang up, or if you say, hey, I have an emergency, and you hang up, you're probably going to get the sheriff's responding first before we're going to go, because it's an unknown type call. The sheriff's going to come out, and they're going to probably figure out what's going on before we get there. And if it's something like an open line where they don't hear anything, what we do is we'll all be going at the same time. But 9 times out of 10 on those unknown type calls, you're going to get the sheriff's probably at your door first. Hey, what's going on? You know, that type of stuff. So, but, you know, working with our local law enforcement and fire department for our special needs community, you know, the more information that you give to the dispatcher, the more you're going to get, it's going to benefit. You know, I know sometimes we don't want to admit that, you know, our son is having a bad day. I've had that where, you know, it is what it is. But the more information that we get out, the more that we're going to be able to help our community. All right. Cool. So we get a lot of questions. I know there's a lot in our chat about fire extinguisher, which one is better than the other, and all that stuff. So hopefully this will clear us up a little bit. I want to just go over some of the fire classes and the acronym PASS. If you haven't heard that before, we'll get into that. So a Class A fire, which is this green triangle up on top, is a Class A fire. It's ordinary common combustibles. That's like wood, paper, textile, sometimes plastics. A Class B fire is what are flammable liquids and gases. That's our gasoline, propane, and paint. Those are all the flammable liquids. The Class C fire was the key word is electrical fire, and they have to be energized. So if that appliance, let's say your appliance, your toaster, you stick the toast in, all of a sudden it starts going haywire, it's energizing, we got a fire. But the minute that they pull the plug, or de-energize that, it becomes a Class A fire. Not to confuse you, but that's the key component of that. Class D fire is combustible metals. Those are our metals like like our Volkswagens and stuff like that. You remember, have you ever seen a Volkswagen burn? Those really bright colors, the metals off of it. That's a Class D fire. And then we have a Class K, which is the typical for like commercial kitchens and stuff like that. The vegetable fats, that's a Class K. That's more for our industrial and stuff like that. The acronym PASS, you can see it up here. It's the pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep. And that's the 4 things that you're going to remember when you pull your fire extinguisher. And if you're able to put the fire out, because it's a small fire in the kitchen, like a grease fire, something small that you're like, I can get this right now with, you're comfortable, levelable. And that's a key word, is whatever you're comfortable and you think you can put out. And it's, you know, if it's small enough, you can, by smothering it or pulling a fire extinguisher. Remember just to pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep. Make sure that, you know, your extinguisher is nearby within the kitchen area, because that's the most common. Or, you know, you can have more than one fire extinguisher in your house. You can have one in the kitchen, you can have one in the garage. Those are where areas that were most common. You know, your dryer that catches on fire because the lint trapped and all that stuff. Or, you know, it's an old dryer and that's the day it decided to go out on us. So those are the things where you can keep those fire extinguishers. The 2A10BCs, fire extinguisher that will handle majority of all our fires in our houses. Those are readily accessible over at Home Depot, Lowe's, any of those places. When you go up there, you can actually grab them off the shelf, look at it. The caveat on that is when you buy them from Home Depot, make sure they are current, meaning that when you look at the bottom of the extinguisher, there's a date on the bottom, we'll say 2025. At least you know it's current enough that it's going to work. And the needle, when you look at it, it's in the green. It's not in the off the green, because when you go to squeeze it, it's going to go, it's not going to be effective. So we don't want that. So that's why we say when you go to Home Depot, look at the extinguishers, make sure they're current and they're not 4 or 5 years out of date. Or if you have old extinguishers at home, let's say they've been around and you keep them current, make sure you just take them to a fire extinguisher company. They'll service them, make sure that they pass their hydrostatic test date, make sure that the hoses and seals are all good to go. Once they slap their tag on it and they put their tag on it that it's good for another year, you're golden. You can still use those other extinguishers. But if those are the two that options that you have. All right. All right, Beth, next one. We're gonna watch another really cool video. She explains it real well on the fire extinguisher. That's why I picked this one. She did a really good job. So I want you guys to watch this. This will answer a lot of those questions as well.
When was the last time you had to use a fire extinguisher? For most of us, fire extinguishers are one of those things we like to have around, but ideally would never use. Hi, I'm Rachel with Ally Safety. In this video, we're going to cover some quick tips on fire extinguisher use. It's going to include the types of fire extinguishers, when to fight a fire and when to evacuate, and lastly, how to use a fire extinguisher. I know your time is valuable, so without further ado, let's jump right into it. To understand how to extinguish fires, you first have to understand the fire triangle. For a fire to exist, there has to be 3 elements in place. Those elements are oxygen, heat, and fuel. Fire extinguishers are designed based on the type of fuel that may need to be extinguished. Using the wrong type of extinguisher can actually just make a fire worse. You have to know the type of fuel that you're going to need to extinguish to choose the right extinguisher. How fire extinguishers are designed to work is to remove just one side of the fire triangle. For example, a lot of fire extinguishers are powder extinguishers. What they do is suffocate the fire with powder, removing the oxygen. A water extinguisher will remove the heat from the fire. Remove one side of the triangle and extinguish the fire. The classes of extinguisher that you need to know are A, B, C, D, and K. Class A fire extinguishers are for ordinary combustibles, things like wood, paper, and cardboard. Class B fire extinguishers are for flammable liquids like diesel, oil, and gas. Class C fire extinguishers are for energized electrical equipment. Class D fire extinguishers are for combustible metals. Those are things like sodium, potassium, and magnesium. Class K fire extinguishers are easy to remember. Think of the K as standing for kitchen. They're designed to put out fires in things like deep fryers. Now, one thing to know about fire extinguishers is some are specific to just one type of fuel. For example, it may be simply a type A extinguisher or type K, but most can extinguish more than one type of fuel. This is an ABC fire extinguisher. This is actually the most common out there. How it works is it uses a dry powder to smother the fire. Portable fire extinguishers are built to extinguish fires that are in the incipient phase. This is the phase that comes soon after ignition, before the fire has really generated a lot of heat. A fire in this phase is roughly the size of an office trash can. Now, you don't want to extinguish fires that have gone to the next phase, which is the growth phase. In the growth phase, the fire starts to generate heat and grows rapidly. A fire extinguisher isn't designed to extinguish a fire that large. Most fire extinguishers only have enough extinguishing agent to last about 30 seconds. In the event of a fire, always make the decision that your safety is your priority and never put yourself in the position where the fire is blocking you from the exit. Only fight the fire if you feel comfortable and safe doing so. Now, to fight a fire using a fire extinguisher, remember the PASS method. That's P-A-S-S. Hold a pin, aim the nozzle at the base of the flame, squeeze the trigger, and sweep the base of the flames from side to side. Once the fire is out, it's not uncommon for the fire to reignite a few minutes later. So make sure that you're keeping watch until you're certain that it's out and done. Okay, so now you know the basics of fire extinguisher use. Make sure to check that you have the right extinguisher for the type of fuel available. Also, check the fire extinguishers to make sure that they're properly charged and ready to go in case they're ever needed. Thank you so much for watching, and until the next time, I'll see you later.
All right. So they kind of explain kind of what we already did. It re-enhances all of the, the different type of classifications of fire, how to use a fire extinguisher. And, at least you got some ideas. If you feel comfortable enough, if it's a small enough fire, you can hit it with a fire extinguisher, go ahead and do it. But if not, if it's something you're like, it's just too big of a fire, like I said, I grab our loved ones and get out, meet at our place, call 911, get the fire department there, and they'll put it out. Sometimes that's going to take bigger water, and like 30 seconds of a dry chem fire extinguisher, it's not going to be enough to put it out. And you're putting yourself at risk with the smoke, the heat. Let's just get out and stay out. So our next part is our, you guys might be familiar a little bit with the Blue Envelope program, and I worked with working with Beth and Autism Society had My Healthcare Passport. Once again, these two programs are they're obviously not a registry. They're not doing no registry, nothing like that. It's all voluntary. It's at your own will. It's just one of those ways to build the communication between law enforcement and first responders. This has already been going on in San Bernardino County since last year. It's the Blue Envelope program, and this is 1% or 4% of our drivers with the intellectual disability still can drive. This is basically, it goes into the vehicle above the driver's side sun visor to keep it there. We train them to, put their information like their vehicle registration, their current insurance card, and, it allows keeping, if they do get pulled over by law enforcement, and keep them from going into the fight, flight, and freeze. And it basically enhances the communication between law enforcement and with this program. But also, not for the traffic stops, but also sometimes if they're having a medical aid or if they become involved in a traffic accident, with the Blue Envelope sticker, our firefighters are getting trained to understand the Blue Envelope program and be able to, with either somebody wearing the wristband or the lanyard or any of the swag gear, our fire personnel are going to be able to recognize, that individual having to be part of the program, intellectual disability, whether it's deaf or hard of hearing or on the spectrum. But also too, if they do get into an accident, we were looking at this healthcare passport. This is already done by the Autism Society, and we were looking at it, another form of communication. Like I said, this is also a voluntary. It's not required. If you want us to know a little bit about, the person in the vehicle, if they get in an accident, this is a great opportunity for us to, one, be able to treat your patient, treat your loved one. I think that was my wife is her biggest fear. And I know some of your guys' fear, what happens if she gets in an accident, she becomes incapacitated? My son, that's nonverbal. How does my partners understand how to get through this process? And I thought this was a great opportunity. We sat down and, I said, Beth, why don't we implement this? If you can keep it either at the home of if you have the fire department come frequently to your house, like I said, you can fill this information. And when they get to the door, hey guys, my son's on the spectrum or my daughter's on the spectrum. This is their healthcare passport. This is going to guide us how to treat the individual. It has everything from the what they like verbal, if they have some sensory toys that need to go with them, if that keeps them calm, what keeps them calm? Does mom keep them calm, or does dad, or do they like to be touched by a blood pressure cuff? We'll be able to get that on scene. But also too, if AMR decides to transport the loved one, it has all these different support me with medical procedures. Will they allow them to take a blood pressure cuff? Will they allow them to have an IV? Will we allow them to do x-rays? All the information that can be transported to the hospital to continue that care, standard of care that they need, and without trying to reduce some of the stress of causing them to have anxiety. I think it was a great communication tool. And like I said, both of these programs are voluntary. They're not a registry. That's the main keynote on this. It's not a registry. This is you don't have to even divulge your diagnosis to any of them to get any of these kits from the Blue Envelope program. The IRC obviously teaches this program. We're just trying to get it implemented. We're trying to figure out a better way to serve our community. And I thought this was an excellent way to build that gap, because we all have that same fears of what happens, whether it's a law enforcement interaction or a first responder interaction. We're not out there trying to cause any more anxiety with our special needs or our death of hard of hearing or anybody. We really want to build that gap, and we really want to get back to that community of service. We really want to get back to that and live by our motto. And I thought this was a great opportunity here to engage in that. And that's why we started looking into the program. We wanted to help our people. And like our rates are off the charts right now. And we've taken this back. We've had these long conversations between the fire department and the Autism Society. How do we build this relation? How do we do something better for our community? And that's what's basically what it is we really want to do that. Is it a catch-all, save-all? No, but it's a starting ground. And it could be, if we can start it, we can always make it better as the future, as we grow in our partnership. Next, Beth. So there's some other tips. There's a lot of good questions in this Q&A, and there's some hard questions to answer. I'll do my best, and I'll give you the a standard answer. That some of these programs are not one size fits all. We all have challenges. I was reading one where, what if we do have a fire on the second floor? My son or daughter can't get down to the second or the first level. They won't go out they won't go out the window. What do we do? Those are some really hard conversations. And I get it. There's not a one size fits all, practice, if we can, if there's that ladder that you can get them to go out. I mean, it's going to take some training, and maybe it will work, maybe not. Those are some really hard conversations. And I'll be honest with you on that. That's what we're looking at. That's why it's nice to work with the Autism Society and the Inland Regional. These are the questions that even firefighters. I'll give you the firefighter. If there's somebody on the second floor, we're going to go into rescue mode, and however we need to get them out by carrying them out, kicking and screaming, that's what we're going to do. Life over safety. The life is the most important part of that. We're going to rescue them, make sure that we get them out. I mean, yes, those are some very hard questions, but I'm going to be honest with you. But so other tips, use visual cues. You can label potential hazards on with a clear symbol, using like an X to indicate they should not be touched, or teaching the children the meaning of the symbol through tailoring learning approach, ensure that they understand and can follow safety rules. This is one thing I was asking the behavioral support plan, collaborate with your with a BCBA to address unsafe behaviors. Individuals' behavior plans could be reduce risky tendencies while teaching safer alternatives that align with the child's unique. And that's something I would recommend even for my juvenile that was setting up there playing with a lighter. Those are something that we can sit down and be able to, at least I learned from it, at least I can least direct her to that as well, help them mitigate if he likes to play with fire. And like I said, it was very close. He could have been really hurt when he was playing with a white lighter, and he was fascinated with candles. He was fascinated. And we sat down. I told Mom, take everything away. You have a lot of people living in this house. Everybody's staying with everybody. Not a big deal, but little Johnny or little Gio likes to play with fire. If he lights a couch on fire because he's attracted to it, that's going to be a problem, because we have a lot of people here and we might not be getting to exits. So take all the lighters away, take them, throw them, or put them in a lockbox, put them in a car where he can't get to them. And, and that's something I would do, the BCBA, to address the unsafe part. So even I'm learning on this, guys. Visual support and social stories. Use a visual aid or social story to teach a fire safety step, like identifying exits, responding to alarm, staying calm during fire drills. My son, some of the schools up here my son goes to San Salvador over in Colton, and they constantly are testing the fire alarm. And when he first started, obviously he had an oversensory, but as we're walking him, getting used to the fire alarm, he's getting a lot better. Before he was having a bad day. But as they were getting more into it, they practice their fire alarms at the schools and stuff like that, which makes me feel better, because as a parent, you're the same anxiety that you all have. I sit there and like, what if that, but to see the school actually participating in fire drills and active shooter drills where they lock down the students within 40 minutes, I was proud. So I'm glad. I feel safe for the San Salvador. If your kids go there, it's a good school. And not that the other ones are not, but I give you my tidbit. Practice makes perfect. Repetition and consistency. Practice are key. Regular fire home drills at home, familiar with their environment, helps you understand the steps to take during an emergency. And I realize, guys, this program is more tailored to our caretakers and the family. It's really difficult because our kids on the spectrum, for my son, he's not verbal. It's hard for me to go and say, Ryan, go to the door, stay low. That's just too much for him to process. And I get that. So the reason why we did it for the caretakers to detail it is because I figured, if on this, somebody at home is going to have a caretaker, let's just say, hopefully that's majority of it. And like I said, this is not a one size fits all program. I know there's some things like, but what if my situation, this is just a guide to kind of help out a little bit. It's not going to answer all questions. It's not going to be able to fix every solution. And I know there's some growing pains. Every situation's different. But this is just a blanket cover. Hopefully we can get something, you learn something from it. And, we're always learning from each other. We're always trying to figure out what's best for the both of us, for the fire department and our community. If there's things out there that, that you think, hey, you know what, I should have mentioned this. My email is going to be at the end. Send me emails. Let me know what could be better. I love to hear from your feedback, because that's going to make it easier for us to grow, to make this better. And I realize, like, some of the questions we get, it's hard, it's hard. What happens if my son that, doesn't want to go go out the window? Those are tough conversations, and I get it. And there's not really an answer for it, unless you can really get them to practice that and work with their BCBA therapist and see if that would help. but I hope you understand. I know we took out some time. I hope you learned a little bit from us. You know, this is the first one, so you know, hope you guys learned something. I'm here to help you guys out.
I know it's almost 8 o'clock. We've gone an hour and a half.
Sorry, guys, we got into it.
I appreciate everybody sticking on. I don't know if anybody wants to stick on, and Sean, you can answer some of the questions maybe
Yeah,
in the Q&A.
You know what? I
Um,
can do that. I'll be
yeah,
glad to help
and
with this.
then if not, we will be sending out the PowerPoint and the recording. It'll go up on YouTube. I also want to mention, I know Dr. CJ Cook is here on this, and thank you, CJ, for all of your hard work on the blue envelope and the safety presentations. Regional Center was a co-sponsor of this, so I appreciate their partnership on this particular project. So Sean, I'll turn it over to you and let you go through some of the questions.
No, I get it. And like I said, I'm reading them. I'll be here no matter what. My email is at the end. If for some reason I don't get to it, and you have one way to email me your questions, I can always fire it back at you. I'm looking at it. You know, most of it was just there's some really good ones on here, and I was trying to find it.
Some hard ones. How about this one? How often should you replace a fire extinguisher? This one's 5 years old.
So the key on that one is annually. We want you to, the suggested is annually. Every year, replace your fire extinguisher. And that's why we look at the dates when we go look in our commercial. And I know we're talking about commercial versus residential. Commercial, when we enforce that, it's every year they should have their fire extinguisher tagged annually.
Okay, and then there was a question about how to join the Blue Envelope program and the healthcare passport. I will say the healthcare passport, the Autism Society has it free for download, so we'll send that information out. And then we'll also send information about the Blue Envelope program, about which departments are participating and how to get that information. Do you recommend a certain ladder brand for the second floor windows?
What? I didn't hear. What is it?
Do you recommend a certain ladder brand for the second floor windows?
You know, as long as it meets the, like it's, hopefully it's, when you're looking at it, it's well made and it has the approval on it. Like, look on it and make sure. I don't know what's out there. I know they're out there. There's some that attach to the window, they drop it over and they can climb down. I've seen those. I don't know what manufacturers are out there, but when you're looking at that, I would just want to make sure that they're tested, one, for the weight, and make sure it fits your needs and stuff like that. Just be cautious on that. And I mean, I would recommend that would not one brand or another. I would say, I just, as long as it meets the, it's been tested and stuff like that. You really want it to work when you need it to work. That's the whole key.
This question you may have already answered, but it's interesting. Would jumping into the pool in the backyard be a safe place if they could not escape to the street from a house fire?
As long as you want to try and get out of the way of the refuge. I mean, when I say refuge, so you want to get away from the house as far as you can. Depending on how far the pool is, if you can get at least 50 feet, it's not a bad idea. It's not it's not recommended, but if it's all else fails, and that's a safety zone that you can get to and be safe and not get hurt, and because the structure is on fire, and until we get there, why not?
Great. And good question. What do you do with the old extinguishers when you replace it with the new ones?
So depending on which ones you get. Now, if you get the ones that are serviceable, meaning that you can turn around and have them service them by a local fire extinguisher company, such as we have over in San Bernardino, it's Riverside, San Bernardino County fire extinguishers, you can take them there. They can take the old ones, or they can service that one and put a new tag on it, and you'd be good to go for another year.
Okay.
We don't take them as the fire department. We do not take the extinguishers or at a fire station, but some of those fire extinguisher companies that are local will take them.
Thank you. All right, it's 8:03. Thank you all for hanging in. We appreciate it. We'll
Thank
be
you, guys.
sending out the information, Sean's contact information, and lots of resources. So thanks for hanging in and have a great night. And thank you, Sean, for all your work you've done on this.
No problem. Thank you guys for having me. I was an honor to do this. And like I said, the feedback is the most important. I really want to make this a better opportunity to work with you guys. And if there's something out there that you guys would like to see added, and as we move along, and I don't want to take too much more time, Beth, but as we move along, we're going to add different PowerPoint slides to seasonal and talk about different things. So it's not going to be the same PowerPoint. So stay tuned for other stuff. Like we're coming into Christmas and Halloween. So we're going to be doing some more stuff like that.
Great. All right, you guys stay safe and thanks again. Take care.
Have a good night, guys. Bye.